Let me explain. I was not unduly disturbed by her self-accusatory innuendos. I was still firmly resolved to pursue my policy of sparing her purity by operating only in the stealth of night, only upon a completely anaesthetized little nude. Restraint and reverence were still my motto, even if that purity, incidentally thoroughly debunked by modern science, had been slightly damaged through some juvenile erotic experience, no doubt homosexual, at that accursed camp of hers. Of course, in my old-fashioned, old-world way, I, Jean-Jacques Humbert, had taken for granted when I first met her that she was as unravished as the stereotypical notion of a normal child had been since the lamented end of the ancient world BC and its fascinating practices. We are not surrounded in our enlightened era by little slave flowers that can be casually plucked between business and bath, as they used to be in the days of the Romans. And we do not, as dignified Orientals did in still more luxurious times, use tiny entertainers fore and aft between the mutton and the rose sherbet. The whole point is that the old link between the adult world and the child world has been completely severed nowadays by new customs and new laws. Despite my having dabbled in psychiatry and social work, I really knew very little about children. After all, Lolita was only 12, and no matter what concessions I made to time and place, even bearing in mind the crude behaviour of American schoolchildren, I still was under the impression that whatever went on among those brash brats went on at a later age and in a different environment. Therefore, to retrieve the thread of this exploration, the moralist in me bypassed the issue by clinging to conventional notions of what 12-year-old girls should be. The child therapist in me, a fake, as most of them are, but no matter, regurgitated neo-Freudian hash and conjured up a dreaming and exaggerating dolly in the latency period of girlhood. Finally, the sensualist in me, a great and insane monster, had no objection to some depravity in his prey. But somewhere behind the raging bliss, bewildered shadows conferred, and not to have heeded them, this is what I regret. Human beings, attend! I should have understood that Lolita had already proved to be something quite different from innocent Annabel, and that the nymphian evil breathing through every pore of the fey child that I had prepared for my secret delectation would make the secrecy impossible and the delectation lethal. I should have known, by the signs made to me by something in Lolita, the real child Lolita or some haggard angel behind her back, that nothing but pain and horror would result from the expected rapture. O winged gentlemen of the jury! And she was mine. She was mine. The key was in my fist was in my pocket. She was mine. In the course of the evocations and schemes to which I had dedicated so many insomnias, I had gradually eliminated all the superfluous blur, and by stacking level upon level of translucent vision had evolved a final picture. Naked, except for one sock and her charm bracelet, spread-eagled on the bed where my philter had felled her, so I foreglimpsed her. A velvet hair ribbon was still clutched in her hand. Her honey-brown body, with the white negative image of a rudimentary swimsuit patterned against her tan, presented to me its pale breast buds in rosy lamplight. A little pubic floss glistened on its plump hillock. The cold key with its warm wooden addendum was in my pocket. I wandered through various public rooms, glory below, gloom above. For the look of lust always is gloomy. Lust is never quite sure, even when the velvety victim is locked up in one's dungeon, that some rival devil or influential god may not still abolish one's prepared triumph. In common parlance, I needed a drink. But there was no barroom in that venerable place full of perspiring Philistines and period objects. I drifted to the men's room. There, a person in clerical black, a hearty party commandee, checking with the assistants of Vienna if it was still there, inquired me how I had liked Dr. Boyd's talk, and looked puzzled when I, King Sigmund II, said Boyd was quite a boy, upon which I neatly chucked the tissue paper I had been wiping my sensitive fingertips with into the receptacle provided for it and sallied lobbyward. Comfortably resting my elbows on the counter, I asked Mr. Potts was he quite sure my wife had not telephoned. And what about that cot? He answered she had not, she was dead of course, and the cot would be installed tomorrow if we decided to stay on. From a big crowded place called the Hunter's Hall came a sound of many voices discussing horticulture or eternity. Another room, called the Raspberry Room, all bathed in light, with bright little tables, and a large one with refreshments, was still empty except for a hostess, that type of worn woman with a glassy smile and Charlotte's manner of speaking. She floated up to me to ask if I was Mr. Braddock, because if so, Miss Beard had been looking for me. What a name for a woman, I said, and strolled away. In and out of my heart flowed my rainbow blood. I would give her till 9:30. Going back to the lobby, I found there a change. A number of people in floral dresses or black cloth had formed little groups here and there, and some elfish chance offered me the sight of a delightful child of Lolita's age, in Lolita's type of frock, but pure white, and there was a white ribbon in her black hair. She was not pretty, but she was a nymphette, and her ivory-pale legs and lily neck formed for one memorable moment a most pleasurable antiphony, in terms of spinal music, to my desire for Lolita, brown and pink, flushed and fouled. The pale child noticed my gaze, which was really quite casual and debonair, and being ridiculously self-conscious, lost countenance completely, rolling her eyes and putting the back of her hand to her cheek and pulling at the hem of her skirt, and finally turning her thin mobile shoulder blades to me in specious chat with her cow-like mother.